From the very beginning, God set aside a people of his own, not so they could be more privileged than any other people, but so they could represent him to the world, so they could stand in the midst of the world and say, this is who our God is. This is what it means to follow him and live lives that are so holy and compelling and joyful and loving that it'll draw others to his light so they can be saved. And Jesus says, that's your job. And this is how you walk that way, by walking like me. If you're part of his people, that means the Sermon on the Mount is for you. But it starts with the Beatitudes, these 12 verses that begin with the word blessed. And that's why it's called the Beatitudes. That's the Latin word for blessed. What it means is you have the good life. Instead of thinking about all the things you don't have and living in misery, you live in this joy and drinking in everything that God provides for you. It means you live with purpose and peace. It means that every day is meaningful. It means that you have hope in your heart, that you know this story is leading to somewhere. And best of all, you know how the story ends. Now, when you read the Beatitudes and you read the things that he lists as the good life, as blessed, you go, well, that doesn't sound that great. You see, we were taught to do math one way. We were taught to do math according to the world's standards. And the world has a very different version of what the good life looks like. Some of you here this morning are young. You're in your teens or your 20s, maybe your early 30s, and you're still figuring out what life is all about, and you're hearing from the world, here's what it means to live the good life. And you have to take all of that and put it up against God's version and say, well, who do I trust? Some of you are in your middle years or maybe your older years, and you've been living this way for a long time, and you've been trying so hard to make the world's math work, and it won't work because you haven't found that happiness and joy and peace that you were looking for. You never can quite get there. It's like chasing a butterfly. It's always close, but just stays right out of your grasp. And the harder you chase, the more it evades you. So here's what I want to do. I want to show you the world's version and then contrast that with Jesus' version. So what I did was I rewrote the Beatitudes as if the people who run this world had written them. Here's the world standards of the good life. You ready for this? The world's Beatitudes, if there was such a thing, would read this way. Blessed are the narcissists and the show-offs, for they get all the attention. Blessed are the beautiful and the vain, because they always have a date on Saturday night. Blessed are the selfishly ambitious, for they get what they want no matter who they have to run over. Blessed are the party people, for they have all the fun. Blessed are the whiners and complainers, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Blessed are those who know how to spin the truth, because they get elected. Blessed are the bullies, because no one messes with them. Blessed are the greedy and affluent, because they can buy all the happiness they want. Am I right? Those are the standards the world lives by. That's what we hear from advertising. That's what we hear on the news. That's what we hear in conversations around the water cooler, in the classroom, wherever we are. That's the standard. That's what it means to live the good life. How's that working out for you, though? How many people do you know who have everything this world promises and are also happy? And yet, look at the Lord's version. God's way is better. Let me walk you through it. Jesus says it's good to be poor in spirit, which means to know that morally you're bankrupt, that you cannot become the person you hoped you would be. This godly sorrow, it's coming to the point where sometimes you whack yourself on the forehead at your own mistakes and your own sinfulness. It's sometimes even weeping, longing to change, because when you have that kind of godly sorrow that leads to repentance, you will change because Jesus will save you. It's good to be poor in spirit. He also says it's good when we mourn and grieve. I went to a funeral just yesterday for my aunt who passed at the age of 89 years old. And I've been to a lot of funerals lately. It's been tough. And yet, every one of those has been sweet. To remember how beautiful life is, how short life can be, how precious it is, and also to grieve and to mourn and to weep and to know that God is the one who comforts us, that in the end, He's the one that will wipe the tears from our eyes. And in the meantime, He's the one that is the God of all comfort in the midst of our grief and suffering. We don't run from tears, we embrace them. He says it's good to be meek. Now, that's a word that's often misunderstood. because it rhymes with the English word weak. No one wants to be weak. Meekness is not weakness, though. Meekness simply means that you put others ahead of yourself. Meekness means I'm not out here looking for my rights. I'm not out here trying to advocate for myself. I'm out here taking care of others. The perfect picture of meekness is the big, strong man who's holding his infant child. And even though that child does not care about anybody else's needs but his own, that father is going to protect that baby. He's going to treat it gently. He's going to change its diaper when it needs to be changed. He's going to do whatever he can for that child because it's his. That's meekness. When you live that way, the great thing about living a meek life is you have relational peace. And all these people who strut around and have to be the alpha male or the domineering female, they live in constant conflict. They're always ramming up against others and hurting people's feelings and feeling guilty and having people angry at them and being in the midst of fights. And it's no way to live. But the meek shall inherit the earth because they're not out to claim it for themselves. They're out to glorify God and bless others. He says also, it's good to be pure in heart. I'm sorry, I skipped over some. It's good to hunger and thirst for righteousness. And that's the person who is so obsessed with this idea of becoming like Jesus. They never settle for the righteousness they have now. They never get to a point where they're proud of themselves. Self-righteousness is unheard of in them because all they can think is every time I've grown closer to God, every step I've taken, every sin I've repented of, my life has gotten better. And I want to keep on that journey. And they don't have time, they don't have the emotional bandwidth to judge other people because they're too fixated on their own journey with God. When you are hungering and thirsting for righteousness, you are satisfied. Because the righteousness Jesus provides, that's the meal that fills you up and yet leaves you hungry for more. He says it's good to be merciful to those in need. It's good to be a person of compassion who doesn't just feel sorry for others, but actually takes action, who opens their home. We just got done talking about biblical hospitality, but also goes to their house, who fixes their stuff, who sits by their bedside. Someday you'll need that. Someday you'll need someone to sit by your bedside and hold your hand. Someday you'll need somebody to weep with you. Someday you'll need somebody to help you pay your bills. And if you're merciful now, those people will be there because you've done to them what you will someday need. He says it's good to be pure in heart, which simply means to be sincere. And these are people who don't put on masks and they don't pretend to be somebody they're not. And when they show up in their church on Sunday mornings, they're not strutting around pretending to be more righteous than they really are. They are themselves, and they go into their life group and they share their sins and their struggles, and they weep alongside those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. And those who are pure in heart and sincere and they come before the Lord in that state, holding nothing back, they're the ones who see God and experience Him in a life-changing way. He says it's good to be a peacemaker. We don't think that way. We think, why would I borrow somebody else's trouble? Those two people are fighting. I'm glad I'm not in the middle of it. Or maybe I just need to whip out some popcorn and watch them go at each other. But no, they don't do that. They say, I want to get involved because we're called to be reconcilers. And when people are at odds, we do what we can to make peace. And when people are estranged from God Himself, we make peace between people and God. We get in the middle. 2 Corinthians 5 says, it is our mission in life. Whatever else God designed you to do for a living, your ultimate mission in life is to be an ambassador for Jesus Christ who reconciles people to one another and to God. Jesus says it's good to be mistreated. It's even good to be persecuted, to be falsely accused, to be mistreated and treated cruelly because of Jesus Himself. Now, let me be clear about something. I've known some Christians who were mistreated, who were falsely accused, who were judged harshly, and it wasn't because of Jesus. It was because they were jerks. And that's not the same thing. If you're rude, if you're inconsiderate, if you're self-centered, and people hate you for it, congratulations. You've sown the seeds and you're reaping the rewards. But if, on the other hand, your whole goal in life is to walk like Jesus and you speak the truth in love and you walk in humility, but you also walk in boldness, and people are offended by that because they will be, then you should rejoice and you should say, my Father sees and He'll vindicate me in the end. And in fact, it's a sign that you're living well because Jesus, the perfect person, came to this earth and people hated him. And if they hated him, they will hate some of us. They will hate us at times. And we are blessed when that happens. Again, none of that makes sense from a human perspective. That math doesn't seem to math. And yet, how many people do you know who walk like Jesus? Maybe don't perfectly follow this, but it's the goal of their life to follow this. And they have a life that all of us envy, that all of us aspire to. There are people in this very room who would be embarrassed if I've named their names, but they live this way. And they're the people you and I admire the most.